Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Speak Plainly podcast, where we speak plainly about things that matter. I'm your host, Owl Medicine, and in today's podcast, well, it's Thanksgiving week, so we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving. It's a special conversation for me because this year I'm going home for Christmas for the first time since my brother died in 2007. My grandfather died just before Thanksgiving, and my brother died just before Christmas on the same year in 2007. And I already wasn't on good terms with my family. When I went home for his funeral, I wasn't welcome at my mother or my father's. I didn't want to be at either of their houses, so I actually stayed with a friend in Indiana. And I stayed with her for the week of my brother's funeral. And I haven't been back for any of the holidays since. At the end of the day, what I wanted to talk to you about this week is how I plan on putting myself in that situation where I know I'm going to be easily triggered and how I am planning on dealing with all of that. Without any further ado, this week, we are going to be talking a little bit about radical acceptance therapy, and we're going to be using some DBT skills, or the Dialectical Behavioral Therapy skills, straight out of the workbook that I have when I went through the DBT course. DBT, if you don't know about it, is amazing. DBT, like I said, is Dialectical Behavioral Therapy. It is a +1 to a slightly older model of therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy. And they're largely the same, but this has the addition of mindfulness as a component, as a necessary component for cognitive behavioral therapy. So when you add mindfulness, it's dialectical behavioral therapy. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal therapy. It is far more effective than talk therapy ever thought about being, and I love talk therapy. So what's so great about dialectical behavioral therapy is that it is a whole system of how to take opposing or conflicting things, whether those are thoughts or opinions or emotions or situations, and try to find some congruency between them. Trying to find opposite opposing things and find a way in which they are not completely opposed. And I love that. I find myself to be a dialectical intersectionalist. That's the way I describe myself and my whole philosophy as a unit. So I'm going to give you a few tools that you can use that I plan on using for my family. I'm going to give you a few that I'm not going to be using because not every family is the same, and no family is the same, and none of our strategies are exactly identical for how to deal with our families. Look, Thanksgiving's hard. Christmas is hard. The holidays are hard. The sun is gone. We have no vitamin D. We're stuck inside a lot more. We're on top of each other. We're moving our bodies less. We're not eating as well, typically. We're eating more, but less well. And things get rough. So, I'm going to try to give you some tools to help you move through it. We're going to talk about opposite actions. We're going to talk about radical acceptance. We're going to talk about how to plan out your opposite actions. We're going to talk a little bit about behavioral analysis. And going to give you some interpersonal skills. Specifically, one, that because it's family, this one's really good for me. It's the I want, they want ratio. We're going to talk about the I want, they want ratio for how to help us navigate some of our interpersonal dynamics, especially with family members that will remain our family, whether we like it or not. And this episode is for people who are going back to their families, are going to be spending time with their families this holiday. And if you are not one of those people and you're going to have Friendsgiving, then fuck yeah. I spent years and years, well, all of these years since 2007, just doing Friendsgiving. So I get it. Fuck them. If you don't want to go back, you don't need to. But if you are, we're going to talk about a few things that'll hopefully help you out. Plus, I'm going to give you some tips on how to negotiate. And that should be helpful. So the first thing to think about is when you're going into any situation that you know is going to be rough for one reason or another, the thing that you really ought to think about is, what do I want out of this? What is it that will make me feel good going into this distressing situation? If things go wrong, how would I like to behave? That's the first thing that you got to take accountability of, which was probably going to take some time. You're going to have to sit and think about it, because the thing is when we go back to our families, we all revert. We all revert. There's this thing we'll talk a little bit about today, again later, but it's state dependent learning. And anytime that you're with your family, the state that you were in when you were with them most is going to resurface, and the things that you learned then are going to resurface, including all of these automated coping strategies. And automated coping strategies are exactly what we are trying to avoid in this situation. Because our automated coping strategies are what make us act like fucking toddlers. And I don't know about you, I'm 35 years old, I'll be 36 in less than a month, and I don't want to act like a toddler. One of my goals in life is to behave myself in a way that I can be really proud of at all times. And that works for me because I don't think that I need to be what you might call well behaved at all times. I think there are absolutely times in which it is necessary and called for to be, quote, misbehaved. So I want to behave myself in a way that I'm going to be proud of me, because that's all I really care about. Having estranged myself from my family for so long, the only thing that I ever had to care about was my own opinion of myself. What are my rules for me? Because everything my family gave me at one point was garbage. So all I cared about was me. What do I need to do for me? And for me, I want to behave myself in a certain way. I want to carry myself in a certain way because reputation is important to me. That how people think of me. I want people to think of me well and be inspired. So I need to behave a certain way, which means when I go into a situation like this, especially with my family, where I know there's a really good chance of me being hella triggered, I need to know exactly what it is that I want. For me, I want to behave in a way that I'm proud of. Now, we can break that down into what that means. But for you, this is your first chance to sit and really think about, how do I want to behave when things go wrong? Not like going in blind and going, oh, I hope everything works out, and just being an anxious wreck as you are like trying to walk into this chaotic environment with your chest ripped open, being like, look how open and loving I am, and then getting stabbed in the fucking heart. That makes you a dumbass as far as I'm concerned. That's why I love radical acceptance stuff, is because you have to radically accept that your family is who they are, and that they're going to treat you the way that they have always treated you, most likely. And your job is, if you still choose to fuck with them and you're going over there for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, then you have to accept the fact that they are who they are. And if you moving in blind expecting them to change, and if they hurt you and that's your strategy, that's on you, bro. That's on you. You have to understand that they are who they are and you are who you are. So, step one, figure out who you are by figuring in this moment, by figuring out what it is that you want. Do you have a pissy aunt? One who gets super drunk every time and you just don't want her making a scene. Maybe that makes you super cringe and super uncomfortable. Maybe you have a racist uncle or a whole family unit that is just cold and unemotional and judging and doesn't approve of you or your lifestyle or something. Whatever it is, you know your family, right? And you know yourself. So the first step is to plan ahead. It's called pre-coping in dialectical behavioral therapy. You know it's going to be tough and you know you're going to have to cope with it. So cope ahead. By coping ahead, what you're doing is you're looking at what do I want and what do they want. And this is where that what I want and what they want ratio comes in. But first, you have to figure out what you want. Do you want to make a statement? Is there something that you believe that your family needs to hear from you in order for you to be okay with all of this? Then if that's the case, make sure that you say that. Make sure that you find a way to say whatever it is that you want to say in a way that it's going to be heard. Not just in a way that makes you feel better in the moment, but in a way that what you mean to say is actually going to be heard, that it has a chance of being received. Even if it's rejected, at least it was received. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe what you want is a genuinely peaceful experience, and that's what I want. That's what I want this time. What I want from my visit with my family this Christmas is a peaceful experience. My grandma has cancer, and her husband died 2007. She has family, she has her daughters, but she's in her 80s now, and she doesn't really have much of a reason to live. She's got some folks, she's got my cousins and stuff living with her and things now, but things pop in and out and give her reasons. But when I talk to her, it's spotty, man. I don't hear much of a zest for life or being alive when I talk to her. So I'm concerned that this is probably the last chance that I have to go spend Christmas with her, which is what we did. The reason I'm going there, and it's so important to me, is every holiday at my father's was the same in the way that we watched Davy Crockett and the River Pirates every single holiday. It didn't matter if it was Christmas or Thanksgiving or Easter or a birthday or just a people gathering. It didn't matter. We always watched the same movie. At my mom's side, we all had every holiday at 1 p.m. at Mama's. We all had these trays, and we'd go get the trays, and they were like little blue Zodiac trays, which was really funny because they were also Christian, so Zodiac was not a thing in the family, but the trays looked cool and they worked. There was one tray with a train on it, and we called it the choo-choo tray, and we all fought to get the choo-choo tray. And we'd get our food, and we'd do it buffet style, and then go down and sit in the living room, and watch TV and go outside and play football when we were young and kids, because they had a decent sized yard. So we'd go and do all that kind of thing. And it was just such a wonderful, I have tons of things that really pissed me off. I wanted to beat my cousin's ass one year because he walked up to me and decided to slap the headphones off of my head and be like, "Big guy's praying." Before my grandpa died, that was his name, Big Guy. I mean, there were things that were unpleasant, of course, but now that I'm older and reflecting back, I really just want to have that experience one more time. I recognize that I'm not a child anymore. I recognize it's not going to be the same experience. I also recognize that I'm not really going to have any presents for anybody because it was like a fucking almost $1,000 to get these tickets because they're Christmas. So all of that's a little sad, but oh well. What I really want is to spend time with my grandma because it might be my last chance to have this experience like I did when I was a kid. And that's what I want. That's what I want out of it. I want a peaceful experience. And I know that there will be distress. I know that there will be arguments, and there will be uncomfortable stuff, and there will be like all the normal family drama crap. But so long as none of it's caused by or pointed at me, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to let it go. Not my circus, not my monkeys fly. So that's what I'm setting up for me. I actually want a very peaceful experience. And in order to do that, I need to cope ahead. I need to sit and think about who is going to say what that's going to piss me off. And how do I want to react? And the way I try to do this is I think of who is most likely to piss me off, and what are the top 2 ways that they are likely to piss me off. And then I think of what is my most likely reaction to those two things. How am I going to react if this happens this way? How am I going to react if the constant negativity flying out of one family member's mouth gets under my skin and she's bringing the whole vibe down because they can't shut their mouth and they just always talk negatively? How am I going to deal with that? I know how I want to deal with that. I know I'm going to want to deal with that by being like, could you just shut the fuck up? Really, could you just shut the fuck up? Because I'm that type of person. I will say I'm having a really hard time with this. This is my first time back in decades. I haven't been here since 2007. And you're sitting here and all you're doing is running your fucking mouth, talking about everything that's gone wrong with every family member in every doctor's appointment and every fucking day of your life. You've got something to bitch about. Could you shut the fuck up for 5 seconds and let the rest of us enjoy our lives? That'd be great, thanks. That's exactly what I know I want to say because I have said that to this person. And I don't really want to do that because it didn't work. It made me feel good. It made me be like, yeah, because I'm gay. I got wit. I got sass. We're going at it. Like, if we're if we're going to have a battle of wits, you will lose. That's just the way it's going to be. And I will feel good about it. And I can hold on to that gloating for days and feel good for days. But eventually it wears on me. And I realize that wasn't the way I wanted to deal with it. But ultimately, I could do better by planning ahead. So the way I plan ahead with this is I know how simple this person is to manipulate. So I know that with this person, all I have to do is change the subject onto something specific that they enjoy. If I can just steer the conversation to right there, then they'll pop up with something about what they enjoy and what they like and their competency. And then everything's great. Because instead of them bitching about something, I've now moved the conversation ahead of time because I saw what was going to happen, because I thought about it, because I took the time to be an adult and pre-cope for this situation and went, they're going to do this. They're going to be chronically negative. And one of the ways that I can prevent them from being chronically negative is to just adjust the conversation and bring up something that they are competent in. And if I can bring up something that they are competent in, they're in a great mood, and then suddenly everything around me is going to be wonderful. And that's the way to do it, man. As far as I'm concerned, that's the way to do it. Now, this is going to be much easier for me than it would have been years ago, which is why it didn't happen years ago. But one of the things that I'm happy about is outside of that, well, there's not much that I'm worried about. There's not much that I'm worried about for like the family drama or whatever. So I'm like, all right, cool. So that's step 1. Figure out what it is that you want. And then step 2 is plan for what you think is going to go wrong, what you think is going to set you off, so you act in a way that you wouldn't get what you want, and plan a way around that. So we've got 3 steps. First, figure out what you want. 2, figure out what the triggers are going to be for you in that situation. And 3, figure out a way around that trigger. And do all of this before you get there. All of this before you get there. So there's a few other things, right? This is a pre-coping strategy. And it works really, really well for me because I'm pretty good at coming up with the variables. For some of you, your family might still remain chaotic enough that you can't figure out what the variables are going to be. So here's a section for you guys. If you don't know what the variables are and your family is just horrid and you know it's going to be hell being around them, then you need what DBT calls distress tolerance. And there are a million ways to do tolerance for this distress. But one of the easiest to remember is opposite action. So this worked really well for some people in the DBT skills group, which is why I'm bringing it up. It does not work well for me, but I'm going to lay it out for you. and I'll tell you why it doesn't work for me, but it works really well for other people. So I'm going to lay this out for you. It's really simple. The idea is when somebody upsets you or pisses you off, whatever emotional urge you have in that moment, do the opposite. So, like, if in the moment you're feeling angry and what your emotions are leading you to want to do, the behavior that anger is like pushing you toward, if you're looking to attack or criticize or hurt somebody or shout, those are the things that anger wants us to do. The idea is that we can diffuse that anger by doing something totally opposite that throws us off and confuses the neural networks in our brain. So instead of attacking and criticizing, hurting somebody or shouting, consider validating them, or consider avoiding them, or consider distracting yourself. Distract yourself, pull yourself away from the situation, and rather than shouting, try using a soft voice. When you are so mad, all you want to do is scream at somebody, take a deep breath, and then try to speak in the softest voice that you can and still be heard, obviously. Or if you are feeling afraid and you want to avoid people, or you want to hunch your shoulders, consider approaching whatever it is that you fear, and instead of like pulling your shoulders forward, forcibly make yourself stand up tall. If you're feeling sad and you want to shut down or be passive or slump or hang your head, try being active. Just get involved, set some goals, and stand up straight. So it's important to notice that you have to do the opposite, not only just with what your emotion wants you to do, but your body language, your posture, and your facial expressions. If you want to scowl, try smiling. What this does is it confuses the networks. So there are networks in the brain that do certain things when they operate together. And by having the anger network essentially activated, by throwing in a piece of the compassion network, it throws everything off, and then you're less likely to steamroll into full-on anger and lose control. The same is true for fear and for sadness. When you know you are getting pissed off, when you notice that you're getting pissed off and you want to punch somebody in the face, maybe don't do that. Maybe do the opposite. Maybe reach up and like give them a kiss, or like pat their face or something very gently. And it can't be in a condescending, sarcastic way either. That's just going to piss people off. So there's the opposite action. And remember, you don't have to do the opposite action forever. You only have to do the opposite action as long as the situation lasts, as long as the conversation lasts. And the conversation only needs to last as long as you like say it needs to last. Because you can always be like, I gotta go, and leave, or just say, I don't want to talk about this anymore, and you can find a way. I believe in you. I believe that you can find a way to get yourself out of the conversation. But you don't have to do these forever. Now, I mentioned it doesn't work for me because by the time I am upset, I cannot bring myself to do the opposite action. Some people can. And I was shocked by that. I really thought that I was like, this is a terrible, terrible coping strategy. Nobody's going to be able to do this. But I was wrong. They did. They did. They did it and they liked it. It worked really, really well for them. And I was shocked. So there you go. I'm wrong. It happens more often than I would like. So the next thing that we should talk about is behavioral analysis. This is a little bit of what we were talking about earlier. You have to in dialectical behavioral therapy, there is there is a problematic emotion, and there is a precipitating event to the problematic emotion. What triggered the emotion? And then when that emotion was triggered, then there's usually immediately thoughts followed by that emotion and judgments on those thoughts, which then trigger secondary emotions. And that's what makes it all so terrible and this is why I focus on rethinking broken, because rethinking broken prevents people from falling into shame and limits us to guilt. Rethinking broken helps to get to that secondary part. Like we can't get rid of noxious stimuli in the world. We can't get rid of bad events. We can't get rid of hard, stressful things. But we can get rid of the secondary judgments that come when we experience whatever it is that we're experiencing from the precipitating event. So in this case, a precipitating event might be the mother-in-law's visit. And the emotion is rage. Say when your mother-in-law comes, you experience rage. And the external event, the precipitating external event, was your mother-in-law comes and visits. She looks at your house and her face looks disgusted. That's what happened. You saw her face. You saw the face that she made, the little and immediately rage. Because what are the thoughts? They could be anything, but you're probably aware of things about your house that you aren't in love with, that you know that need to be done, that you haven't been able to do yet. And that little look on her face triggered all of that. So if you look at it more closely, then you might find out that your rage was triggered by the mother-in-law's visit and the look on her face. But it was actually more triggered by these thoughts that come up secondarily, the ones that say, my house needs paint. My yard's full of weeds and it's looking run down. I need to mow. This place is a dump. I need to dust. All of the things that you already know that you're not pleased with about your house, mother-in-law comes and that judgment is there, and boom. Then the secondary events, when you think about my house needs paint, the yard's full of weed, I need to mow, the place is a dump, all of that kind of crap, then you have another round of emotions. Now you have rage mixed with sadness. You have the emotion of sadness with thoughts like, I hate this place, and then you fall into another emotion, shame. And we trigger secondary thoughts like, why do I spend my life like this? Why do I live in a dump? Why can't I do better than this? I don't know why. Oh, wait, yes, I do. It's because I'm a loser and I can't make any money and nothing ever works out for me. And then the behavior is accusing my mother-in-law of not helping us when we need it and not caring about our problems. And when she disagrees, you blow up on her. Now, that's a very classic kind of example. This is a behavior analysis example because what we're doing is we're looking at what was the external actual behavior that happened, and then what were the thoughts that were triggered by that behavior, and then what were the emotions following those thoughts. And if we can figure out what these are, then we can interrupt them. We can soften overwhelming emotions by changing what we do before the emotion sweeps us away. The first step after completing your behavioral analysis is to decide which of the precipitating or secondary events that you want to alter. So you can do this even ahead of time, like I was laying out with planning what you think is most likely to go wrong. This is a behavioral analysis. You go, okay, this is what I think is going to go wrong. Which of these can I change? You're not going to change, you probably can't change your mother-in-law making a face when she walks in. And you probably can't change the fact that your yard is full of weeds and you got to mow, because if you could have changed those things, you would have by now, but you have other things to do that took precedence. And so what do you change? For me, in this spot, it would be, I would like to change the secondary events. I don't want to feel sad because of that. I don't want to think about how much I hate the place or how much I failed. I want to stop there. I want to leave that judgment behind. So that's what you plan. You plan ahead and you go, okay, well, I don't want to flip out on my mother-in-law. So what I'm going to do is, if when she walks in and she sees that, I'm going to recognize that there are things that I don't like about the house right now that I wish I could fix, but I can't because I'm busy and I got shit to do. And if she want to make a stank face about it, then she can make a stank face about it, and oh well. Because you can do this ahead of time before you're thrown into all of the crazy emotions of it. So, the ABCs of problem solving is a great piece of DBT information. That's the next and last thing that we're going to cover. This is the alternatives, best ideas, and commitment to implementation. Your alternatives, here, your idea, as you're sitting and you're thinking about what your Thanksgiving is going to be like, think of what people are most likely going to do and what you're most likely going to do, and then brainstorm a bunch of alternative responses. Because again, the one thing that we're trying to prevent is letting our conditioning run away with us. letting that conditioning from early life take over, and then we act like a toddler, and everybody in our family is then justified in viewing us in whatever way that they have viewed us that pissed us off to begin with. So for me, it's mandatory to pre-cope. It's mandatory to cope ahead because I know that I want to behave in a certain way, and I know that they are the way that they are, and it's on me if I don't. So, planning ahead, brainstorm what are the alternate responses that you could come up with as a way to cope with whatever it is that is going to piss you off. And once you brainstorm some ideas, then keep the best ones. That's the B part. Alternatives. Brainstorm alternatives. B is the best ones. So brainstorm them. Don't shut any of them down. That's what brainstorming is no matter how bad the idea is, you write it down. That's what brainstorming is. It just allows the creative juices to flow. And then write down the ones that you came up with that were the best. Whatever your favorite ones were, then commit to implementing those. Identify the time and the place that you'll try out new responses. Write out the new thoughts and behaviors that you will use. Like literally get a pen and paper and write them out. I know it sounds extra, but it's really, really worth it. It's not any more extra than our emotional responses to our families are, so it's worth the work if you ask me. This is a really short one. I didn't want to take up your time too much, and I really enjoy doing these podcasts, like I've said, but I tend to, unless I feel I have something epic to share, I wind up being like, ooh, this should be better, and then I don't do one because I want it to be quality. And I'm moving from done is better than perfect to I'm moving back toward done is better than perfect for each and every one of these, because although I want to be putting out quality, I also want to be putting out consistently, because I want to be here with you guys. I want to be a part of your crew. I want to be a voice in your head, and I want you to be a voice in mine. So if you enjoyed this podcast, then leave a review. Leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And I hope that you have a good Thanksgiving. I hope you make it to your family and you have a great time. If you are going to go visit your family and you know it's going to be tough, then I suggest you pre-cope. I suggest that you cope ahead, and I suggest you figure out what it is that you want. I suggest you figure out what it is that is most likely to go wrong. I suggest that you use that ABC rule to brainstorm some alternatives, to pick the best alternatives from that brainstorming sesh, and then commit to doing those alternatives. And pick a time and place to do that, because that's going to make you much more likely to do it. Last thing I'll say, there is another distress tolerance that people might need. I'll warn you now, because Thanksgiving's Thursday, and these things don't really work as well in the moment if you don't have a practice established. So, if you have a particularly problematic family, or just your dynamic with your family is particularly problematic, or you're in a spot where you are feeling thin and weak and frail, and what's only normally kind of problematic might be way worse this time, I suggest you do progressive muscle relaxation. Now, it's a really simple technique. I've talked about it on here before. It's something I use very regularly. And when you're first starting, do it for like 2 weeks, and do it every single day. And it takes only a couple of days to really get it down. So do between now, Monday, when this comes out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all 3 days, at least once a day, go on YouTube, find yourself a progressive muscle relaxation or PMR video. And it's basically like a yoga nidra, which I've also talked about, but it has the additional step of clenching and relaxing each muscle from the head all the way to our toes. And the way that we do this, by squeezing and relaxing, it activates and then deactivates all of the resting tension in our body. It makes us take full accountability of what tension is in our body. And you've also heard me say on here, if you have mental tension, I promise you there is a equivalent physical tension, a physiological tension in your body simultaneously. And we're really good at not noticing our mental tension because that's how we survive. So notice the physical tension. This week, if you're going into a rough spot, come Thursday, go today, find a progressive muscle relaxation video, 15 minutes. 10, 15 minutes is all that you need. And do one today, do one Tuesday, do one Wednesday, and definitely do one or two on Thursday. Because the way that you can use this is when you know that you're getting upset, somebody's starting to get under your skin, you can literally like squeeze your lats and squeeze your shoulders and squeeze your traps and squeeze your arms and your forearms and your legs and do this one by one and let the tension go. And once you have moved through that a couple of times through this week, it'll happen so much easier on Thursday. You can just do a couple of thigh pumps and be much more calm than you would be if you didn't have this skill. So that's my final. If anybody's going and knowing they're going to have a really rough time, try progressive muscle relaxation throughout this week. That way it's already established as somewhat of a habit by Thursday. That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I hope you have a marvelous week. And remember, stay curious and stay uncomfortable.